Welcome to Healed, Whole, Called, a podcast centered on the healing power of Jesus and what it means to walk in wholeness and calling in real life. This is a space for honest conversations about faith, healing, and restoration, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, and how those truths meet us in everyday life. This podcast is supported by the Story Discernment Guide, a reflective resource created for those who sense they are carrying a story meant for more, but want clarity before writing, publishing, or sharing it publicly. The guide is designed to help you pause, pray, and discern what you're stewarding without rushing or pressure. You can access it at storycalling.info. And now, here's your host, Wendy Melrose.
Hey everybody, today's guest is known as the self-love alchemist. Denise Michelle is an award-winning life coach, hypnotherapist, and trainer with Tony Robbins. With over 25 years of lived experience overcoming trauma and addiction, she now empowers healers and spiritual entrepreneurs through her signature self-love mastery. Denise believes that self-love is the foundation of all love, and it is more than healthy habits or self-care routines. It's in the deeper inner work that allows us to understand our authentic selves, radiate love from within, and live vision-driven lives that ignite transformation in others. So, hello, Denise.
Hello.
So, I would love to my favorite is to share, trauma, tragedy to victory stories, and you seem to have an amazing one. So kind of bring us to the beginning on like how God has helped you overcome, what he helped you overcome. You kind of brief it in the introduction, and how has it made you who you are today?
Yeah. I would say the biggest gift of it all was being born with borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
And receiving that through my mother, because I really believe that it comes down generation to generation. And if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get healed, it just continues to stay in a cycle. So, growing up in a chaotic childhood and in a very dysfunctional family dynamic, um, really, my parents did the best they could with what they had, and they were not very emotionally intelligent. So there was a lot that I wasn't receiving as a child that children actually really need.
Yeah.
So, growing up was difficult. And at the same time, it was my greatest gift to go through life in that way, because ever since I was a little girl, I was always seeking love. And it was, for many years, it was about the love that was outside of me. And then over the years, when I went through my healing process, it was the love that lived within me.
Mm.
And this is where I really feel like I was guided through this process, because, you know, going through, your teenage years, your 20s, and all of that, and I went through a whirlwind, and it wasn't easy. I went through various addictions. I went through and they weren't like the normal addictions, I guess, that you could say, drugs and alcohol. It was other things. I mean, I wasn't really into drugs, a little bit, but not a lot. But it was more of like love addiction, promiscuity, like I said, seeking love outside of myself, and trying to fill voids in every way which possible, which meant not looking within.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my early 20s, when I started looking at myself, because I recognized that my behaviors were affecting somebody that I deeply loved,
Mm.
um, that was my catalyst to say, you know what, this needs to change. And at that point, I hadn't been diagnosed
Mm-hmm.
with borderline, but I was getting treated for depression, anxiety, and sexual abuse as a child. And then I knew that that was part of it, but I didn't know that's what they were treating me for. And I was like, I think there's more to this. And then once I discovered, when I was 26, that I was struggling with BPD, that's when my whole world opened up and collapsed at the same time. So it was like hitting rock bottom, on top of now I have this insane mountain to climb, and I have no idea what's on the other side of it, because I actually don't really have an identity at this stage of my life.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so going through that process, going through massive therapy. I was in therapy 3 days a week, just for that. And at the time I was living in Los Angeles. So thankfully I had a lot of resources there. And then when I moved, not when I moved, but when I was 28, I was basically ready. I had hit a plateau and I was ready to end my life. And
Mm.
that's when it really scared me. And that's when I left my corporate job of almost 10 years and submitted myself into an outpatient treatment program in a Los Angeles hospital, where I would now spend 10 hours a week in therapy.
Mm.
Recreating my life and my identity. And so this is actually what has led me. That was back in 2008. So that's what has led me into doing all the work that I'm doing today, being in service, helping other people, is because as I started to heal and grow, I recognized that everything that I had been through was actually not for me.
Mm.
I was a vessel at that stage, and
Mm-hmm.
it was working through me, and I was here to help and support other people. And that's when I became a yoga teacher, a yoga studio owner. I became um, a person who not just helped people heal, but inspired them to look within themselves as well. So it really was a beautiful gift in a lot of ways. It was difficult because I was still healing while I was serving. And I believe that because I was in service, it helped my healing process as well.
Mm.
So, so
Yeah,
I
I was
would say
actually
like that's the
uh,
gist.
that's amazing. I was just really just watching a video about how the best way to um according to this doctor to help one's depression is to actually serve.
Yeah,
And and it's true. I mean, even when, regardless of what it is that you have going on, helping others will help you focus not on yourself, even though I know you're talking about, self-love, but there's a difference between self-love and focus on self.
yeah, yeah. There's
So,
two. It's well, because there's ego self and there's higher self, you know. So, what I have discovered through this process is that when we start to, so not, I don't want to say surrender into the ego self, but observe the ego self as that's going to be the parts of us that, wants to avoid pain and only stay in pleasure, that keeps us in our addictions, that keeps us in our cycles, that keeps us in our patterns and our habits and our behaviors,
hmm.
because it's our comfort zone. That's the ego self. And we need the ego self. The ego self is here to help us grow, but it's our higher self that leads us, right?
Hmm.
However people want to say it, whether it's God, whether it's Jesus, whether it's the universe, whether it's spirit, right? It's the higher self, and we are being guided, because I really believe that we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Hmm.
And when we connect to something beyond us and we learn to surrender to that, and we are guided through that, this is where I believe our we start to make these beautiful discoveries and creations of our purpose, like why we're here. Why is every single human being on this planet, there's 8 billion people, right? There's a reason why every single one of us is here,
Hmm.
right? And then we become messengers. We become, like I call myself an instrument for healing, right?
Hmm.
I don't like to necessarily say I'm a healer. I mean, yes, that's typically what people will call me, but I'm an instrument for healing, right?
Hmm.
And it comes through me. And that's how I was as a yoga teacher, meditation, and then later on, doing the types of healing work that I do with people.
Nice. Well, and share with us the journey about where you're living now, because it's everyone's dream to be to be living in Bali. So how did you go from, breakthrough, which is, you started helping others, you started to heal yourself, to now? I mean, I know it's probably an 18-year jump, but still there's been a lot of growth.
Yeah,
How did that
yeah,
all
well,
happen?
Well, during COVID, actually, it was so 2020 to 2021. I reached yet another dark night of the soul, and
Mm.
I've been through many. I've been through many ego deaths, but this one was big. This one
Mm.
was losing 5 family members in the span of 12 months, including my mom to COVID.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and my life spiraled out. My mom was my compass. It was like I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing anymore. And I do healing work and trauma work with people, and I couldn't even navigate this. And that's actually how I landed in the Tony Robbins world. Because I went to one of his seminars, and then I recognized, like, it's time for me to start reestablishing a new identity, and work through the grief. And I knew that his programs were going to help me do it, and they did. And I worked really hard over that time, and I ended up in his leadership program. And I just remember sitting in my dream office, because I was literally living in my dream home in the Santa Monica Mountains. Like, if you guys would have seen my backyard, you would have been like, why would you leave that? Um, it was incredible. And it was just, I mean, that was every part of that house. I was put together with intention, and I was sitting in my office, and I'm looking at my wall of achievements, and I was like, is this it? Is this it? Am I just going to get more certifications, more awards, more recognitions? Is this what I'm here for?
Mhm.
And then Tony talked about two things. He talks about the science of achievement, which I'm like, I have that down. But then he talks about the art of fulfillment. And the
Mhm.
art of fulfillment is that's where our why lives, why we're doing what we're doing. And I
Mhm.
recognize that I was fulfilled up to a point, but not enough. And something needed to change and shift. And it brought me to Bali.
Mm.
And when I originally came to Bali, it was a really, I was just receiving these signals, almost like I was getting squeezed out of Topanga. And like, it was time for me to move on to the next phase of my life.
Mhm.
And I heard the calling, and when I got the signal to go to Bali, I booked my ticket on a Friday and I left Saturday. It was that quick.
Mm.
And that right there, it was scary, because you can just imagine, like, I didn't know what was down there. I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to grow my wings on the way down. I have no idea. And there were also things that I knew that I needed to face while I was in Bali. And
Mhm.
I did that. And so during those 8 weeks that I was here, I was really on this very deep spiritual journey, as well as working, because I can work from anywhere in the world. So I was working, I was creating, and I was also healing. And knowing this, I just let it unfold step by step, and it guided me into um, receiving another signal that I called for, asking if I was meant to move to Bali. And and it came in the way of a chicken. I found a chicken drowning in the ocean on a new moon at 10 o'clock at night. Why I was there, I cannot even tell you why I was there,
We'll
because I
just
go to
call
bed at
you
9.
Moana saving Hey Hey.
I am. Yes, I totally say that. Like I'm a total, I feel like I'm actually Moana. I kind of look like her too.
Nice. And I
And
have
now I have the chicken. Now I have the chicken to prove it. And it is just, yeah, and it was just so wild, because this chicken comes into my life, and I expected it to pass away overnight. I brought it home with me, and then it didn't. It came back to life, and now I had a chicken, and it totally changed my plans,
That's
because I was
awesome.
actually supposed to leave. I know, right? I was supposed to leave to go to speak at a conference in Paris, and I was like, well, I'll just fly from Bali to Paris then, instead of go back to Los Angeles. Like it totally changed the trajectory. And then during that time, I was recognizing, I think my time in Los Angeles after 24 years is done.
Mm.
And while I was still in Bali, I wrote my landlord, and I gave her my 30 days notice. And then I had a whole new, I don't want to call it a problem, but I had 3 weeks to seal up 24 years of my life and sell everything. And
Wow.
some did. Yeah, it was wild. It was a wild time. It was, people are like, I don't know how you're staying so calm through this. How did you do that? And I'm like, I knew the big picture, but I was literally just taking one step at a time because that's all I could do.
Right.
And
Right. And you were
yeah,
walking through the doors and really running as fast as they were opening. What year was
yes,
that?
that was in 2022. So
Okay.
I've been in Bali for literally 3 years now.
Nice. That's super cool. I had a year very similar to that in 2023, where it's like it's like I felt in the fall of 22, I knew everything was changing. You know how like you had said that ball. I'm like it was all it feels like it might sound weird to the audience. It almost feels like you're going through the birth canal again.
Yeah.
That's and you're going into a new birth. It's like a squeeze. Anybody who understands birthing, the uterus will have contractions and it'll squeeze that baby. The cervix opens up and people are like, ew, but it's what happens. And then the baby's birth and then you have new life. But there's this point where, um, it's so intense for the mother and for the baby to get through that last part. And
Yeah.
it's like it's very interesting. And when you share with people like what your life and what I've been through and others, it's fascinating and it's the best experience in the world. And I tell people I'm like I had the best year of 2023 and yet so full of so much. And I'm sure that was the same thing for you. I crave it again. I'm like, but I
Mm.
don't want to necessarily go through that much change. I loved how so much was happening and every door was opening and but it was like I've never experienced anything like it in my life. It was the most wonderful, most wonderful thing.
Well, and that's the thing. This is why I call it a vision driven life, because we get to live our lives by default or by design. So
Mm-hmm.
when we design our lives, and it sounds like you're about to go through your next calling, because but except you get to do it on your terms this time, with full consciousness, with knowing that, okay, there's actually a science to this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And this is part of the stuff that I teach people, is that I didn't just go through that process blind. I actually have systems of support that
Mm,
have literally helped me live my dreams over the last almost 8 years, since I started learning this method. And I learned this method from my first mentor, Mary Morrissey. And it was literally learning how to not just manifest, how to make quantum leaps, how to align with your dreams, how to align with your spirit, how to live with the vibration that allows the doors to open and you walk through them,
mm,
right? As they're happening. It's like you're conscious to the process itself, while you're co-creating with God and the universe, right? And
mm-hmm.
it's a really beautiful way to live, because this is how I can say, um, and this is what's so awesome, is that, like, the way that I've manifested my homes, for example, or like leaving California. I was like, well, how can I make this the easiest way for me to move out of Topanga? It's not easy. I live in the mountains. So, like, to sell everything, I'm like, in 3 weeks, I just don't know. And I just remember, like, sitting with it. And then a friend of mine had mentioned, well, what if it doesn't have to be hard? And I'm like, you're right. Okay, I need to think about this bigger. And she planted a seed for me, and she said, what if there's somebody out there in the world who doesn't have any possessions, and they only, they want to move into a furnished place? And I was like, that's brilliant. So I called it in, and it happened. I ended up connecting with somebody who only had clothing, and I negotiated a really good price for her. And you can just imagine how easy that made things for me,
Wow.
right? At that
So
stage.
then the
Yeah.
only thing you really had to move was anything that you wanted to take with you of sentimental or of personal value.
Yeah. I basically had four piles. I had a pile for for giving away. I
Mm-hmm.
had a pile that I was going to be bringing to Bali with me. I had a pile that was going to the storage unit, and then I had a pile for my family that I was going to give them some things.
Yeah.
So that was it. It was like I created those 4 piles. The rest went to this woman, and she moved into a beautiful furnished home with everything, because I've had such intention with the home that she loved everything in my place
Wow.
that
That's
so
perfect.
like, yeah, and everything was in really good quality, and yeah, so it worked out. And and to get rid of all your possessions in one fell swoop after you worked so hard to create it, that's one of the things that I also want to just plant a seed for anybody who might be hearing that and is like, yeah, but what about my, you get attached to stuff. I will tell you, bringing 3 bags to Bali, and that's my life. I've been okay with that. And I live so minimally now. I don't want a lot of stuff to manage at this stage in my life. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It allows me to be more present in my life. It allows me to continue to design and dream and create, and I'm just not managing a lot of stuff, and it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So everybody wants to know, are you and the chicken still friends, or did the chicken go and pass on at some point?
That's a great question. Actually, her name is Hazel, and she's out there somewhere in the
Oh,
garden right now.
wow. Because they can live a long time
They
if you keep
can,
them
yeah,
from
and she's
predators.
She's about 3 years old. She lives her best life. She's literally the most spoiled chicken in Bali. I cook for her. She has her little spa area. I don't think she even like knows anything different at this stage of her life, because everything is just gifted to her. And she sleeps in my bedroom. She's well taken care of. She has a little kitty litter box where she lays her eggs. And she is just the sweetest girl. And I hold her and I
No.
love her and I kiss her and she purrs, and she's just, who knew? She's like a little dog who lays eggs.
That's so amazing. So I would love to have you have the choice to either pray over the audience or a word of encouragement for someone who might be going, how? Well, I mean, we could even pivot into it a little bit differently. And, they want to experience change,
Yeah,
but they either don't know how or they're afraid.
yeah,
And to
yeah,
me, being movement and forward, I share with someone, I'm like, moving forward, you cannot, how does it work? You'll probably have the better words for it. You have to take step forward, and movement of forward can't be stopped. It's when you're stopped and you expect everything to move for you on your behalf, that's when you're stuck.
right. Well, because people oftentimes what happens, and um, this is a cycle, like for a lot of people, is that, oh, when I have the job, I'll change. When I have the new home, I'll change. When I have this, I'll change. But they don't recognize that in order for those things to happen, you have to change, because
Hmm.
nothing changes if nothing changes. And I'm going to plant a very huge seed for anybody who's listening who's feeling fear of change, is that fear is just a qualifier in our lives. Fear
Hmm.
is showing us 2 things: forget everything and run, go right back to your defaults, or face everything and rise and see what you're really made of. Right. And I think the biggest gift of this is knowing that, the first thing people are, I just don't know how to make these changes in my life. Well, guess what? There are people in the world who know how to do this.
Hmm.
And there is a system. There's a
Right.
science and an art to this. And I haven't lived my life blindly. I literally live my life by design. And
Hmm.
I'm continually recalibrating my visions, my dreams, and I can't even tell you how many of my dreams have come true in the last 8 years, because this is how I live my life now.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and it's not like, that's the thing, people want it now. And my question to you is, if you had exactly what you wanted now, would you truly be ready for it?
Right.
And because the journey is not about the destination. The gift in this is the journey of who you become along the way as
Mhm.
you are learning how to implement, integrate, heal, shift your nervous system, shift your mindset, right? Raise your vibration, right? Allow yourself to connect to something that is beyond the matrix, or, like the cycles
Mhm.
is what I
Oh,
will
that's
call
so
it.
good. So if somebody wanted to connect with you because they're fascinated with how you live life, one with intention into effortlessly. That was too long of a long word, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I hear
Effortlessly.
you. Effortlessly, yes.
Yes, yes. How would they connect with you?
Yeah, so I would say the easiest way is either through socials or through my website. My website is bridgethelove.com, which I'm sure Wendy she'll share in the show notes. And then
Yeah.
Instagram is great. I put a lot of information out on Instagram, which is Denise Michelle XOXO, and I've got an abundance of tools. I actually have a new book coming out this month called Embrace Your Worth, and it's a practical guide. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Self-Love Mastery. So you're learning not just like I'm reading another book, you're actually learning steps and tools and how to take these steps forward, how to ask yourself, higher quality questions, how to, well, what's it, how do I vision? What is that? I have
Mhm.
that in the book as well. I have a retreat in Bali next year. If you really want to dive in and you want to come to paradise and hang out with me, it's going to be 9 days in Bali, and it's a self-love, self-care, and self-healing retreat. But it's not just 9 days in Bali, because what I've discovered is that a lot of people will come here, they get the transformation, they go home, they go right back to their old cycles. And I'm like, that's not going to happen with me. We're going to actually continue on with a 6-week integration program when you get home.
No, that's really
And
cool.
it is cool, right? Because the thing is like, I'm like, I don't want you to just have a faint memory that you went to Bali once. I want
Yeah,
you
yeah,
to
right.
take what you got here and now take it into your life.
That's
So
good.
it's 8 weeks of transformation, and yeah, and then I've got courses, I've got, all kinds of fun things that help people gain the tools and the resources and the knowledge and the wisdom and the play. And it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing if you're really feeling inspired to make some changes in your life.
That's amazing. Is there anything that you would like to leave with the listeners, a final word or word of encouragement, or anything that would help them feel self-love right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this, that you can only love others as deeply as you learn to love yourself. So this is why it's so important to go into self-love mastery. It's not just about eating right and exercising. It's about learning more about who you are and creating that person from your higher self.
Oh, that is so good. Well, thank you so much, Denise, for sharing your heart with us today. And
Oh,
listeners, remember that your story isn't over. You are not disqualified by what you've been through or what you're going through. And remember, with Jesus Christ, you are healed, whole, and called. Till next time, thanks again.
If today's conversation stirred something in you, a memory, a question, or a quiet sense of calling, I invite you to honor that. You can follow Healed, Whole, Called on the platform you're listening on. And if this episode resonated, leaving a review helps these conversations reach others who may need them. If you know someone walking a similar path, consider sharing this episode with them. And if you're carrying a story or testimony and feel a nudge to do something more with it, the Story Discernment Guide was created for you. It's a reflective resource designed to help you pause, pray, and gain clarity before taking any next step. You can access it at storycalling.info. Thank you for being here and for stewarding what you've been given.